Hi, this is Kim Keys, and I'm broadcasting this from Greenbelt, Maryland, outside of Washington, D.C. The reason why I'm doing this screencast is I want to talk about a book that I originally read years ago, and I recently picked it up again because of this year's election. It's called The Millionaire Next Door and was written by two authors named Thomas Stanley and William Danko. And you probably go, the reason why, I'm recording this in October 2016, and the election for picking a new president is just about 2 weeks away. And one of the people running for office is this man, Donald Trump. And for years, I have long heard about Donald Trump, God, ever since the 80s when he published his first book called The Art of the Deal. And it's like he's been in the media spotlight ever since. And he long tells that he's a rich guy, and not only does he tout the fact that he's a rich guy, but he also lives a very opulent lifestyle, such as his apartment that you can see with his third wife Melania and their son Barron. And plus, there's also the buildings that bear his name, such as Trump Tower, and in places all over the world. I mean, there's all these buildings that bear his name, and he's also written books, and he tells about how he's a great businessman, such as this book that's called Think Like a Champion, which kind of implies he's such a successful businessman. And he's also been reality TV show. He's been on The Apprentice, which he hosted for a few years, and plus there's also spin-off products like there's dolls and and vinyl figures and bobblehead dolls and masks and even toilet paper. But he talks about he's very successful businessman, but yet he has also filed for bankruptcy numerous times, and is either 4 or 6 times depending on who you consult. I mean, I got this Washington Post article that claims that he's really declared bankruptcy 6 times. And plus, there's also, he's pretty much bankrupted his Atlantic City casinos, but this New York Times article says that he still made out, pretty well despite filing for bankruptcy. Anyway, getting back to The Millionaire Next Door, I picked it up again. I, was reading through it, and there are a few things that, that really kind of strike me, especially given this time, time of the year. I mean, I'm recording this on October 25th, 2016, and then the elections are coming up in about 2 weeks, and so it's just kind of interesting reading this book while comparing it to one of the candidates. And one of the books, as one of the authors wrote, that basically they started doing this 20 years ago, where they've interviewed millionaires and stuff. And this one story really kind of resonated with me. It says, the first time we interviewed a group of people worth at least $10 million, which they termed decamillionaires, the session turned out differently than we had planned. We were contracted to study the wealthy by a large international trust company. Our client wanted us to study the needs of high net worth individuals. To make sure our decamillionaire respondents felt comfortable during the interview, we rented a posh penthouse on Manhattan's fashionable East Side. We also hired 2 gourmet food designers. They put together a menu of 4 pâtés and 3 kinds of caviar. To accompany this, the designers suggested a case of high-quality 1970 Bordeaux, plus a case of a wonderful 1973 Cabernet Sauvignon. Armed with what we thought would be the ideal menu, we enthusiastically awaited the arrival of our decamillionaire respondents. The first to arrive was someone we nicknamed Mr. Bud. 69 and the first-generation millionaire, Mr. Budd owned several valuable pieces of commercial real estate in the New York metropolitan area. Excuse me. Mr. Budd owned several valuable pieces of commercial real estate in the New York metropolitan area. He also owned 2 businesses. You would never have figured out from his outward appearance that he was worth well over $10 million. His dress was what you might call dull normal, a well-worn suit and overcoat. Nevertheless, we wanted to make Mr. Budd feel that we fully understood the food and drink expectations of America's decamillionaires. So after we introduced ourselves, one of us asked, "Mr. Budd, may I pour you a glass of 1970 Bordeaux?" Mr. Budd looked at us with a puzzled expression on his face and then said, "I drink scotch and 2 kinds of beer, free and Budweiser." We hid our shock as the true meaning of our decamillionaire's message dawned upon us. During the subsequent 2-hour interview, the 9 decamillionaire respondents shifted constantly in their chairs. Occasionally they glanced at the buffet, but not one touched the pâté or drank our vintage wines. We knew they were hungry, but all they ate were the gourmet crackers. We hate to waste food. How do we dispose of our food and drink? No, we did not have to throw it away. The trust officers in the next room consumed most of it. Of course the authors helped. It seemed that most of us were gourmets. However, none of us was a decamillionaire. And that's really interesting to find out, and from that moment on they were doing research as to what kind of lifestyles real millionaires really live and stuff. And the one thing that they found out, that there are like key characteristics of the most successful millionaires, and one of them is they tend to live a frugal lifestyle, meaning that they live well below their means. Most of the millionaires don't really live the kind of lifestyle that Donald Trump lives with, gold walls and chandeliers and expensive furniture. A lot of them tend to have more lifestyles more like Warren Buffett. He's a billionaire. He lives in Nebraska instead of living in Manhattan or San Francisco, he lives in Nebraska. And he lives. The house is big, but it's not like ostentatious. I've seen big mansions in Northern Virginia that are way more fancier than what I see here. And even the car that's parked out front, it looks like a regular sedan. It's not it's not like a Mercedes Benz or anything like that. And the other thing that billionaires and millionaires have in common, according to the book, is time, energy, and money. They allocate their time, energy, and money efficiently in ways conducive to building wealth. And the other thing that the other characteristic is you are not what you drive. They believe that financial independence is more important than displaying high social status, which is completely different from like how Donald Trump shows off his wealth. They pretty much live more like Warren Buffett, with a big house, but it's not very ostentatious, and the car that's parked out front looks pretty simple to me. Not simple, but it's not. It doesn't look very expensive or incredibly fancy. And so, and the other characteristics that the millionaires share are, it's economic outpatient care. Their parents did not provide economic outpatient care, meaning that their parents did not support them when they were getting started. Unlike Donald Trump, which, apparently, according to the Wall Street Journal, Trump's father helped the Donald with numerous loans over the years. So that's pretty, which I think is really interesting here. And there's also affirmative action family style, which means that their adult children are economically self-sufficient. They don't they don't automatically give jobs to their children, and they don't support their children financially once they reach adulthood. They pretty much expect their kids to fend for themselves, which is very different from Donald Trump. I mean, his 3 oldest children all work for his company, basically, and yeah, Donald Trump has 2 other kids. I mean, Tiffany is she recently graduated from college a few months ago, so it's kind of too early to tell whether she's going to be working for her father or not. And the youngest, Barron, he's still a kid, so that I'm not going to speculate at this point. The other thing that the authors noted was that the million is find your niche. They are proficient in targeting market opportunities, and that's almost like if you read about like people who've made it big, people like Walt Disney, Paul McCartney, Steve Jobs. I mean, they found their own niche. They liked doing what they did. They pursued it, and they became successful at it because a lot of people liked what they were doing, and they bought their products and stuff. And then there's also the final thing is jobs. Millionaires versus heirs. They chose the right occupation, and basically, what they say is that like the first generation millionaires, they worked for their money. They started they started businesses. They worked hard, and they earned their money. Whereas heirs, they have it passed down. The money passed down to them from their parents. Anyway, that's it for my review of The Millionaire Next Door. I looked up on Amazon.com, and it's still in print. I mean, there are a few facts they're a little bit outdated, but I think it's still relevant today, especially in today's circumstances. So, I highly recommend getting the book. Anyway, that's it. That's it for now, and have a good day.